So what we're working on today is we have a project where it's a residential polish, high-end residential floor, and they're always tricky. The floor was placed with the intent of being polished, so we had a lot of precautions in place for protection and those kind of things, especially since a lot of the area is covered in red clay. But we ran into some issues during the placement. And you can see it probably most here, is you see this creamy white layer. So in concrete, the deeper you go in, the more you see the sands and the fine of the concrete. Here though, this white, that's the very thin skin on the very top of the concrete. So what happens is in this area, our diamond pads have ground through that, and you see this kind of light salt and pepper type of finish there, but we haven't ground deep enough to remove that here. And that's because this is a low spot. And grinding, being a planar action, comes across here, rides on the high, skips over the low, and then rides on this high. And it leaves this area very minorly touched in the grinding process. So we don't want to expose aggregate on this floor. That's something that was a big directive and desire in the homeowner, no aggregate exposure. So we're going to try something a little bit different on this floor. We actually have already polished to a matte finish. Now we're going to acid etch. The purpose of the acid etch is to eat away at the cement paste. So this white is basically pure paste. The sand and rocks, that stuff can't be damaged by the acid, but this white part around here, the etching process will actually eat away some of that, and we're hoping to unify the color of the floor and either remove or minimize the vision or the appearance of these white spots. And you can see we also have some lightening along the edges of the slab. That's an exterior wall. Same situation going on there, but in a little bit lighter version of it. So we're hoping that the acid etch will do the same thing there, take everything to a light salt and pepper exposure, and then we'll be able to apply a finish on top of that that will kind of bring us back to the desired matte finish of the concrete floor that the homeowner is looking for. This is something we run into when we do protection on floors. This contractor used a Scudo board, remember, and I don't know, can you see that line right there? What this is where one sheet was over here and one sheet was over here, and this line is the seam between two boards or pieces of protection. It's a cure line, it happens from time to time, and we're yet to run into unless you use a truly fully adhered system that has the exact same breathability in all locations, any kind of sheet product has the potential to do that. Protection is a kind of a double-edged sword. It's good, it protects you from impact, debris, in this case red clay, but the other thing, it does open you up to being able to see this. This is potentially something that the acid etch will minimize or maybe even go away, but we'll just have to see how that affects it. Pretty big case here, and this is what we're trying to avoid. If we grind down deeper, we're quickly going to get into this layer of the concrete, and this is the aggregate the homeowner would prefer not to see. Down over here, you can see we have aggregate, and then light salt and pepper, sand, and then right in the middle of it is that paste. That's what we're here to try to get rid of, and that's always done. This is part of the finishing process, and you can see the trowel pattern from the blades on the machine that leave this as it skips over it. Look at a couple other rooms as well. So you can see the effect here on a larger floor area. You can see the pattern coming through the floor over here. These little speckled areas, they're just a pigment-rich or a paste-rich mix. This is a white mix. It has a white concrete or white cement mixed with the sand to get the floor as light as possible. So this light tan floor has it, and this is the paste of the concrete. And those are in low spots. And they may not feel low now, but that's because we've ground over it and smoothed it, but they are still below the area. We haven't ground as deep. So that's where they're all sitting here. And what it leaves is a floor that kind of looks dirty a lot of times because people think that there's something on the floor there. But it's just a matter of getting an even cut on the floor. And this floor was a little bit wavy in some areas. So if we were to get a completely even cut, like on a regular floor, where they were okay with aggregate exposure, we could grind a little deeper and grind through it. But in this case, that's not at all what they're looking for. This is indicative of, these are the 4 blades on a trowel machine. And you can see here, they sat and vibrated for a minute, created paste around them, and then they pulled out. We see these a lot on floors, and this is a matter of just letting the machine sit for a second on the floor while you're finishing, and it leaves a little bit of cream. I can barely feel these, and then you can tell that we've actually ground one completely away. But if we were to grind any deeper here, again, we would be running into aggregate. Thank you for joining me on the walk through this house. This is one of the benefits of working with Concreate. Here we try to find solutions, whether they be polished concrete or coatings or some combination, to give you the floor that you're looking for in your application.